Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Miller's Military Moments. And I am your co-host, Jason Miller, Master Sergeant Retired. So that means I've got my other co-host, because when you have co-hosts, that means there's two hosts. Co-host, yeah, I think something like that. Hey Grant, what's up, brother?
Hey man, what's going on?
Not much. Man, as always, great to have you here and excited to have you on. Man, the support for our shows is really awesome out there. A lot of feedback coming in. People love when we come on and give our opinions of our topics. And apparently, there's just maybe not a lot of that unfiltered truth and honesty happening out there. So they're loving our shows, man.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Yeah, me too. So so today we've got another important topic to talk about. And we're going to talk about the a national security crisis, really. And it's stemming from two lieutenant colonels that many of you probably have heard of. Maybe not, but it doesn't necessarily matter that you've heard of their names. But one, Lieutenant Colonel Scheller from the Marine Corps, and the other one, Lieutenant Colonel Haig from the Army. They have recently resigned their commissions for several reasons. And we're going to get into, what those reasons were, what that really means, and why Grant and I think that it's a really a small example of bigger problems to come for our national security crisis, especially with commissioned officers in our military. So stay tuned for all those details and a great show today. If you haven't found me yet, which you probably have, but the best place to find me is my website, millersmilitarymoments.com. All the shows are on there, videos, resources, links to Twitter, YouTube, and we've got the YouTube channel getting a little bit of refresh and some newer videos getting posted on there. And I promise I'm going to be better about putting my solo shows on there too, because I know y'all love to see my face. Somebody said I look better than I sound, but no, actually, I think you said the other way around. You said I sound much better than I look. So, but it's the microphone, right? So anyway, yeah, check me out there. But further ado, let's get into the show. National security crisis. I mean, who cares? Two lieutenant colonels resign their commission, Grant. I mean, how many others resign or retire every month, right? So why is this such a big deal?
Because they've specifically stated they've lost trust and confidence in senior leadership.
Yeah. So that's a big difference in any resignations that I've seen and that you've seen. And this is really, really important to point out to everybody. When you'll hear sometimes commanders get relieved because senior leaders didn't have trust and confidence in them, or they had a poor command climate, or something of that manner. But when an officer, and he's a field grade, these are not juniors, says that they have lost the trust and confidence of the seniors above them, now that changes things. Big time. That is, a huge difference in saying, listen, all you people that have more experience than I do, full bird colonels and generals, I don't trust that you're going to do the right thing anymore. And to have them publicly do this, which, listen, a lot of people have come out and complained, oh, they did it publicly to gain attention to themselves. They have ulterior motives. And I'm going to say no, that I totally disagree with that. And we'll get into some of that today. So, you asked a question before we started recording. It's like, I wonder how many others have resigned that haven't said anything. And there's probably a lot. We don't know the number, but there's probably a lot. And we can get into, and really, let's probably get into a little bit now of why would they not say something, and what are some of those consequences for saying things, do you think, in your opinion?
Oh, I mean, consequences. You get blackballed. I mean, your career's over with. It's done.
Yeah.
especially as an officer, a field grade officer. I mean, you're done.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's as simple as that.
yeah. So, in addition to being blackballed, I mean, you're probably not gonna. Well, I don't want to say not gonna. You may lose some trust and confidence of the people that you're in charge of, depending on how it goes and how it's put out there. But that could be another issue as well. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the main issue. You get blackballed, and essentially your career's over.
Yeah. And, you know, that's a really good point. And your career is over and you get blackballed, and it could even impact you once you get out of the
Mm.
military. And some of this, you know, when you get blackballed, one of the other things that could really hurt you is when you do leave, whether you're retirement eligible or if you have to leave prior to being eligible for retirement, is your character of service. And some people don't understand how important that is on your final document, you know, the infamous DD 214. And if, you know, you have a less than honorable, you know, discharge character of service, that can impact your VA benefits, that can impact your health care, that can impact getting a job, that can impact a lot of things.
Yeah.
So there's a lot riding on this career and towing the line.
Mm-hmm.
So these consequences are huge. And when we even dive a little bit deeper into these consequences of, you know, we were talking about like commissioned officers and, you know, the military kind of having real control over them until about 18 years. And there's certain promotion timelines and certain positions around there. And the different branches might be slightly different, but essentially the officers have to toe the line. You know, they can't, let's not rock the boat too much. So let's not tell the senior officer, you know, that they failed, that they can't do this, that they shouldn't do this, because it could result in a bad report card, which could end up, you know, if you're passed over for promotion twice, you're out. And if you're out before 18 years prior to this new blended retirement system, you got nothing. You absolutely got nothing. So there was no annuity. There's no 50% of your retirement, of your base pay for retirement. There's no, you know, you could still potentially get disability pay if you earned it, but there's no long-term benefits. So when you retire from the military, you can have TRICARE healthcare insurance for your family, as you know, that costs about $600 a year. And you were talking about that's about how much you pay a month.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and I pay, you know, mine's on the cheap end because my employer picks up $1,200 of the remaining tab on that. So,
right. So this is really important stuff for our listeners to learn, that it's not just, listen, the 50% of my base pay for my retirement doesn't matter. That's not the big thing. The healthcare, you know, the disability and some of the other things that come along, you know, with making it to 20 years. I mean, that's a lot of money. And then of course it's there for the rest of our life. So the consequences of rocking the boat and not towing the line and losing these benefits, I mean, can be, you know, millions of dollars towards the end of a lifetime.
easily, because I know that if the employer, all government employers, all government agencies, and if there's some in the private sector that know how to read a DD 214, that goes straight to the character of service. And if
Boom.
it's anything other than honorable, it, you may not get hired. A
Yeah,
general under honorable conditions, I don't know about
maybe
that. Yeah, maybe. Honorable, yeah, you're in consideration, but something else, not going to happen.
not going to happen. You're right. And a lot of these senior commissioned officers, you know, go into, you know, high level management, executive C-suite style, C-suite level jobs, and they're not going to get them.
Mm-hmm.
So with all that being said, that's why, you know, I'm going to pull Lieutenant Colonel Scheller's words, and he says, we are often a slave to this system, meaning, you know, we can't afford to lose those benefits. You know, we can't afford to not get promoted and be a yes person, you know, to our seniors. We got to make sure that we're getting that good report card, at least until we're 18 years, and then we can make it to retirement, because all of these things could impact our lives so much. And I think Colonel Scheller, you know, did the math, and he says, this is going to cost me and my family about $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a way to kind of, you know, really explain to everybody like the consequences and how important these consequences are. And when we talk about these two colonels that were resigning prior to 20 years, they're not retiring, what they are giving up, what it really means. So, you know, I was glad we could just spend a few minutes just kind of, you know, sharing that part of it, because it's a big deal. It's not like they just quit their job and they can go over and get another job and still have their 401k and have all their benefits and everything. No, I mean, they lost it all, and they did it for what I view as a pretty damn good reason. And I don't know that I have come across too many people, commissioned, non-commissioned, that would have the kahunas this large to do this. I mean, this is putting your family in a situation that, you know, could, you know, be pretty tough and transitioning. What's the probably number one stressor when we talk about transitioning and going into the civilian sector? The one big thing that if we don't have this under control, besides any mental or health issues,
Finances.
boom, finance, right? So money, like if you know, if we get that job and we're making enough money to, you know, to do the things that we need to do and to take care of our family, a lot of the other things will kind of work themselves out. But we've seen time and time again, the service members that don't have their finances under control, man, stress level, like, whoo, I mean, it is rough. So that's what we're talking about here. This is potentially, you know, life altering and changing for them. So why to, you know, we understand what they gave up, which is a lot, but why do you think it's a national security crisis or potential national security crisis? Because two little old lieutenant colonels, 05s, decided to hang it up and tell the senior leadership, I don't think you're doing the right thing.
So, like we said before, and before the show, if two did it and publicly put it out to try to give attention to the issue, how many others are there that did the same thing but said nothing? So statistically, there's probably more that we don't know about. The other thing is, two did it and put it out there and kind of brought the attention on themselves. How many more out there were on the fence about doing it and could potentially do it now because they've seen these guys take the initiative and take the lead on it? And if you have some type of domino effect, these are, you know, battalion level commanders. So you don't want to lose very many of those, especially in one lump sum, so to speak. And if that happens, not only do we lose, you know, a lot of experience with them, but now we've got to fill those positions, you know, and it has that trickle down effect with the rest of the officer corps.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Listen, lieutenant colonels and full bird colonels are tactically and technically, you know, our bread and butter experienced commissioned officers at that point. I mean, they're all 18 plus years, and especially right now, the last 18 years. I mean, not sure everybody has paid attention to what we've been doing, but we've been fighting a war, a couple wars. So these commissioned officers have been in and out of these combat zones and have experience that no one else has. And if you are to lose 50, 60, 70%, I don't know. I'm just making these numbers up. But if that domino effect were to happen, because these people are like, listen, what they are doing is right. And we're going to get into talking about what is it that they're doing and why did they lose confidence in their senior leadership. But if these people say, those guys are doing the right thing, I want to do what they're doing. I mean, honestly, we would be in trouble, man. And I'm talking, like you just said, battalion commanders. We would be in trouble. These leaders are leading organizations between 700 and 1,000 people. They impact beans and bullets like that. They're still low enough to where they impact, those missions. And it would be an extraordinary event for our military to lose a high percentage of that group, and it would hurt us long term.
Yes,
it would long time, because those colonels are going to become full birds and they're going to become generals. But if you take them out of the picture, well, now you don't even have anybody to make generals. And so the few yes people that are left are going to go up to general, and they're not going to be the ones that we need up there. And we need the Lieutenant Colonel Schellers up there, and we need the Colonel Haigs up there. And that's exactly what you're saying. And so, I want to touch on one part that Lieutenant Colonel Haig talked about quickly, and then we can move on to, because it's not the focus. But Lieutenant Colonel Haig said in his resignation, hey, the first part is I don't believe in a mandated vaccine. So he made that a point. And he says, I'm resigning because I don't believe like you should be able to mandate a vaccine to me. What is your thought on that before we move into the other stuff?
Yeah, just like we talked about before, that to me, he probably should have left that out, because that wasn't the issue that needed to be addressed.
Yeah,
right. The issue that needed to be addressed was this other stuff.
Yes.
He put that in there. That was his personal conviction. That's fine. But I think it would have been much more effective had he left it out.
Yeah, I agree. That's not the issue that we're talking about right here. That's not the issue that filled up the other, page and a half of his resignation letter. So I don't want people to focus on that as being the primary reason. Or if you come across that reason, you don't want to read the rest of it, or you think that, this man's character because he said that. I don't think that that's it at all. I wish you would have left it out. I will give my opinion on the vaccines, on this vaccine for the military. And this is just my opinion. I am retired. I'm not active duty, which is why our mission is to bring you unfiltered stories from real military service members, right? I mean, I can be unfiltered now. Like, I don't have the public affairs officer saying you can't say that. So listen, here's my thing. I'm generally not in favor of mandatory vaccines, okay, to include this one, but I will change that a little bit. I will change it to the military. This is my stance. I'm okay with mandatory vaccines for the entire force, but under one exception. If a service member does not want to receive the vaccine and they don't fall under a religious or medical exemption, they should be allowed to leave the service under honorable conditions or whatever their character of service is prior to that decision, and they should be able to walk away. That's it. And then we'll have an all vaccinated force. But my reasoning behind that is, one, it's an all volunteer force. So listen, if somebody volunteers to serve, they should be able to volunteer to get out, in my opinion. I understand the military trained them, paid a lot of money. I get it. I understand it. But if we're also trying to mandate a vaccine, yes, it's FDA approved, but what we don't know is the long-term effects of it. So by not understanding the long-term effects, that's where I feel like I'm okay with them making the decision to say, nope, I don't want it, but that's okay. You can't stay in then, but you can get out, which should be fine. Thank you for your service. I appreciate you. And, go out and do great things for our nation elsewhere. It's simple. And then let's move on. That's my thought.
Yep. No, I mean, I think that's a good point for sure. No doubt. And then the other side, the flip side, which we talked about maybe a week or so ago, is so if if this was a biological weapon designed by China, then logically we would want our military to be, quote, vaccinated against it. So, you know, I mean, yeah, it's, I don't want to open up that can of worms and start talking about the vaccine and all this, because that's a whole nother deal and
It,
everybody's
it is.
divided and,
It
so
is. And you're right. And that's, we really just wanted to touch on that part of it. That's our opinion. That's what we feel about the vaccine and the military mandate. And we don't want anybody to focus on that as being the reason these colonels resigned. Colonel Scheller never mentioned it one time. Colonel Haig did mention it, but okay. So we're going to move into the lack of confidence and trust and what that really means and how they came about it. And really, what you and I have seen from our own experience in the military about being honest with your superior and telling them the truth. And listeners, listen. Hey, listeners, listen. No. Where we're coming with all of this and why this is such an important topic is because we're really discussing what has, led to the Afghanistan withdrawal debacle, why it went so horribly. And we were talking, before we started recording, and how General Milley, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, if you're not familiar with him, has said several times, nobody has ever said or thought or knew that the country could be overtaken by the Taliban in 11 days. All right, I'm here to tell you from my personal experience, and Grant says the same thing, everybody knew.
yes.
Every single dadgum person knew that the Taliban could overtake them in a matter of weeks. Okay, that's more than 11 days. Listen, it did not take a rocket scientist to figure that out. I spent almost 2 years of my own time in that country, 2 years in Iraq, a year in Egypt. I've been in that culture over there for a while. I understand what was going on. And trust me, everybody below me that I ever worked with knew the same thing. They knew for a fact that the ANA could not defend themselves, and they would not defend themselves. They wouldn't fight. So that's what we're talking about here. These lieutenant colonels have finally said, I've had enough. I'm putting my rank on the table, and I'm saying that y'all are liars. I'm saying that everybody above me has lied to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has lied to the president, has lied to the Secretary of Defense, because everybody knew the Taliban would take over in a matter of weeks, and which is what led to the debacle. Go ahead.
I just don't know, one, how he can say with a straight face that no one knew that they would take over, and two, how do you even say it? I mean,
Yeah.
Your integrity and your conscience would say this is blatantly false and inaccurate. There's no way I can say this.
Right. Yes, I agree with you. How it blows me away to even think that he could say that at all, and then say it with a straight face, and then say it multiple times. I mean, I guess if you say a lie long enough, you believe it, and then you can keep repeating it. So it's awful. And here's where these lieutenant colonels have really made a stance, and Grant and I have experienced that. So when we brief seniors, and I say it could be me as a first sergeant briefing the commander, briefing the sergeant major, the colonel. It could be colonels briefing generals. So when you think about all the things that we've talked about earlier, and we called them yes persons, right? But they've got to give information. And when you talk about, so General Milley said, well, this is all the information we were given. And even the president said, well, I went and visited the troops over here, and they performed great. So when a senior person comes to witness a unit perform their duties, Grant, what is that like?
Well, first of all, they've been doing rehearsals. So they know that the person's coming well in advance. They've rehearsed everything that everybody's going to do, and then they execute on what they've been rehearsing.
That's right. It's we love the term dog and pony show.
Yes.
It happens all the time. We'll stop what we're doing, and I'll, use us as in aviation, especially in aviation maintenance. We'll stop what we're doing. We got to clean it up, right? We got to make it to where it looks like we don't even work there. And I couldn't figure that out, man. In Iraq in 2003, we're having a general come by and visit us. We spent a whole entire day not working on the helicopter, but cleaning the hangar so it didn't look like we actually worked there. I was like, wait a minute. I thought he was coming to see us because we're doing a good job working on these helicopters.
Yeah.
Like he didn't want to, listen, can we get Pigpen over here to like put some extra grease on him and get his dirty uniform? Oh, no. You got to go get your clean uniform, wash your Kevlar cover, cut your hair, and then we acted like this one particular day. I can't make this stuff up, man. You know that we had to wear our Kevlars all day because you're quote supposed to wear this is in 2003, even though we're working on you do not wear your Kevlar working on a helicopter. Okay. Right. So we're wearing these Kevlars all around all day long, waiting for him to show up. And then he, supposed to be there at 10 in the morning. He showed up at like 5 in the afternoon. And so, which happens. And it's like such a fake thing, and then of course he comes and gives a speech, hands out a few coins, and then he's out. And it's a big dog and pony show. And they're like, oh yeah, we have everything we need. We have all the people, we have parts and tools. And I'm like, wait a minute. Aircraft number 3 is out on the flight line and we've stripped half of it off to get aircraft number 1 ready to go. So we don't have everything we need. Like, tell them the truth. And that's a small example. And to really, you're saying the same thing with when the president goes and views these Afghan troops, when I think he was a vice president when he did it, but they put on a show, baby. They put on a show, So, and then let's go into, they had 300,000 troops in the ANA, but really they had 150, 150, maybe still. And they really weren't going to, as long as we were there to help them fight, they'd fight. On their own, they very rarely did anything.
Right.
I personally saw that through several different events and exercises when we were not even exercises, but actions in Afghanistan when I was there. So if our guys weren't out with them and pushing them to do, certain things, man, they weren't even doing it. They'd go out of the fob like about a mile and then spend about 4 hours smoking and joking. And like, they don't realize we're watching them, with the drone and whatever else. And then they'd come back and they'd have this bullshit report,
Yeah.
And then the American commanders, and this is what you and I are talking about right here. The American commanders would then brief higher that they're very well trained, equipped, and can defend themselves. So why would they do that? Why did they do that?
I think it's easier. You want to say, yes, we can get this done. And that's taking the easy way out. You're not.
What happens if you don't get it done, Grant?
Oh, well, if you don't accomplish the mission, I guess it depends on the mission, but that's serious consequences there.
And what are those consequences again we just talked about?
Well, it could cost someone their life. It could cost multiple people their lives. It could go fine. You just didn't do what you planned to do, but a lot of variables.
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing is you just said it. Listen, people could lose their life, Afghan side, our side, civilian side, all kinds of things. And then too many of these events, and then the commander gets a bad report card, the commander gets relieved. Okay, because he didn't accomplish the mission. He tried like hell. Okay, or he may have told the superior, oh yeah, we're good. These guys are awesome. Because if he doesn't tell them that, which means he's failed the mission, he can also get a bad report card. If he says, hey, these guys can't do it. Listen, the mission was to do it.
Yeah.
To train these guys and make sure they were ready. And if anybody were to say, these guys aren't ready, they can't do this. And let's go back even 10 years ago. For the last 10 years, generals have been briefing, the Obama's administration, the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We know the failures of the CIA to prevent 9/11 and all kinds of their intelligence failures. They're just as much at fault of this because they are intelligence, right?
Yep.
They have failed on those levels, but they're getting bad reports from the field, false reports from the field. And that's really what it comes down to. And these two lieutenant colonels said, I'm not giving a false report again. I'm not doing it.
Right.
And that's exactly what we're talking about here. For years, this has gone on because they're afraid of losing their career, because we just talked about they're going to lose millions of dollars, in financial security. They'll just toe the line. Yes, person, let me get to 20, retire, or even 30 and retire, and I'll walk away and it's not my problem anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge mess, right? I mean, active Army, I think we're at 465,000. Total active service, we're at 1 million. Guard Reserve, we're at 2 million. So, if you're one person in that big cog, you're like, is it my position to say anything?
Right.
What can I do?
Yeah, and you think it's going to fall on deaf ears. So, especially if you go through the chain of command.
Why do you think right now that you think it would fall on deaf ears?
Because just what we're talking about, it's not going to be reported past a certain point.
Because it has fallen on deaf ears.
Yeah,
that's right. It has fallen on deaf ears. They're not going to report it higher. At some point in there, they're not telling the truth, and they're not going to tell somebody that essentially they failed.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody's job, and multiple commanders' jobs, were to train and prepare the Afghan army and help them with logistics and all that stuff. Listen, you can't create what we have formed in 250 years in 20 years over there.
Yeah.
You can't do it. But minus all that, you and I have talked about the American warrior. What really sets us apart is our will to win. Besides technology, besides training, all that stuff, our will to win, right? Because every fight we get put in, we've always determined that it's the right fight. And what I really mean by that is it's not necessarily you and I determined that it was the right fight, but if our government sent us somewhere, somebody says it's the right fight, I'm going to do what I got to do, and I will get us through it. I will us to victory. I don't care. I will protect my teammates to my left and right, and we're going to accomplish the mission. Mm-hmm. The people that we're trying to train and all this stuff, they do not think like that.
No,
they're not like that at all. So if you take that will out, that element out, we're trying to essentially like train and create robots, get them to just react in a specific manner, plus 200 something years full of logistics that they have no idea what to do,
Yeah, right.
Well, there's no oil in the tank. Well, we don't know why it's working. It just stopped going. Well, you don't have any oil in there. Well, there was some in there at one time.
Yeah.
Well, you have to check it. Oh no, we're not checking that. So Inshallah. Right. Inshallah, God willing, the tank will work.
Yeah.
God willing, when this helicopter takes off and shoots at the enemy to support my troops on the ground, I will hit them and kill them, right? I think I've told you this story. We were helping the Afghan Air Force in Jalalabad with some of their helicopter training and active. So they had small little helicopters. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. The little birds, the A6s, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They were out there. There's the contact, and the ANA were in contact, and they needed helicopter support. We had 64s overhead, brought in their little birds, and our 64s located the building that they needed to target and said, hey, it's right here. Here's the locations. Here's where it's nearby. Do you have good visual? Yes, we see it. We got it. Okay. And then they fired all their rockets 3 miles in the opposite direction. Okay. Winchester, which means they're out of ammo. Return to base. And they're like, what? And the crazy part about that is the 64s, because the rules of engagement here. Okay. There was nobody on the ground, no American service member on the ground. So with the Afghan National Army, which is their regular army, under those rules of engagement, the 64s did not have authorization to support.
Yeah.
So they had to just like keep circling above And like, okay, like, and the ANA took casualties, and then, we can't even medevac them out because of rules of engagement. So we had to let them, keep trying to do it. They can't do it.
Right.
Their guys died, on the battlefield or in the back of trucks before they didn't even know. It's like, man, unfortunately, it's like the Keystone Cops. They're putting guys in trucks and they're just like driving in circles. And they're like, what do we do? And they get RPG'd again, and it's just like, oh my, I mean, so it's really disappointing. I mean, it's sad when you're watching this, right?
Yeah.
This circles all the way back to whoever in the hell told General Milley that nobody knew that Afghan would lose in 11 days. It's full of shit.
Well, and how did he not know? Well, I mean, I guess if he'd believed whatever he had heard, but I just don't buy that either.
Right. I agree. Listen, those generals, have been, in and around combat. They're at the 25, 30-year mark. So they've been in around it. They know when somebody's lying. They know, what the real truth is, but too many of them have become politicians. Way too many of them, and almost all of them, really. The generals have to get approved by the Senate so to get promoted. So they've got to already start hobnobbing.
Yep.
You go from a 1-star to a 2-star to a 3-star to a 4-star within 4 years. When the rest of us are, you got to spend time in a, pay grade, in a position, in a rank to gain that experience. And people will say, well, a general's a general, he can go from being essentially the chief, the deputy commander to being a commander, which was the same thing of a, $25,000 or 25,000 soldier division. And then, okay, well, then we'll just promote him to corps because his division did really good. So now he's in charge of 3 divisions. It's the same. Same. No, what?
Yeah.
No, It's not the same. Like, come on. So they become politicians, and they have become politicians. And these field grade officers, these majors, these lieutenant colonels, so your 04s, 05s, 6s, if they don't toe the line, if they don't tell the seniors what they want to hear and need to hear, because these generals are going to go back to Washington and make these appearances in front of Congress and say, oh, everything's going great. Because potentially, if it's not, they could get fired. If it's not, maybe they'll lose funding for a certain project. Maybe they'll lose funding for a certain project that this company's already guaranteed them a 6-figure salary when they retire.
Yep.
Okay. And I don't have any examples of that. So I don't want people to think that I know that that's exactly what's happening, but I have a feeling that that's what's happening.
Well, yeah, General Mattis went to work for a defense contractor after he retired.
Right. So if you follow the money with maybe any time, and I'm not trying to challenge his integrity, I'm not, because he is somebody that I really do admire, honor, and trust for the most part.
Yeah.
But potentially look at that conflict of interest. Whoever he was in charge of, things that, any defense contractors that he had anything to do with, his area of operation, is potentially a conflict of interest. So,
yeah.
So that's
what
what
I say that I don't think there was anything nefarious about it with him. But just,
not.
Just to show the fact that they do have those, especially the defense contractors, they've got them lined up ready to hire
absolutely
the day after they retire.
No, you're absolutely correct. And I believe you. I have the same belief in General Mattis that, I mean, I trust him. I have, full confidence and trust in him, in his decisions. But, even in, I think 2010 or 11, I mean, he was quoted as, saying the ANA has made really good progress and is ready to defend their nation. And here's an example then that it may not be, again, his fault.
Right.
He may have been given briefings. And listen, when the general shows up, we just told you what's going to happen.
Tell them what they want to hear.
There you go. So when Mad Dog comes in, especially when Mad Dog comes in,
yep.
Right? Because what if they tell him something that he doesn't want to hear?
Yeah. It's not going to be good.
Right. And most likely because he's going to hold him accountable. It's not that, it's not that he it's not that he wants you to lie to him, but he
Mhm.
feels like he's giving you every opportunity to accomplish the mission. And if you couldn't within a certain period of time, you should have come on the net sooner.
Yeah.
Right. Request more resources, request time, request something. It's too late when he's there. And then now all of a sudden, oh, we suck and it didn't work.
Right.
It's like, well, no. So I think that also is that pressure of, well, we're just going to tell him that this is how it is. And, we'll show him a few things and it looks great. And then he goes on his way. And partially, those field grade commanders again are kind of like, no one cares. No one gives a shit.
Yeah. And just to put some perspective on that, as far as the rate that the general grade officers can promote versus field grade and below junior grade, my one of my buddies that was a team leader, I've talked about him before. He came into the Marine Corps, already had a master's degree. So he, on that Fallujah deployment, he gets wounded. While he's wounded, severely wounded by a mortar in Fallujah, pulls his partner to safety that got severely wounded, gets the Silver Star, gets evac to Germany or medevac to Germany. After we get back, he goes into I can't remember the name of the program, but basically he goes into the program to go from enlisted to officer. So he goes to OCS and then he goes to the basic school.
In the Army,
and
we call it green to gold, but
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And so at this time, it's probably 2006. He's a second lieutenant, platoon commander. So he goes from 2006 to 2021 and achieves the rank of major.
Holy 15 years.
Yeah.
To go from an 01 to 04.
Yeah. And to my knowledge, he wasn't on the radar for lieutenant colonel. So you take a guy that has a Silver Star, that has a master's degree, not just a bachelor's degree, not that
Right.
matters that much, but has all that experience. And it takes him 15 years to go from second lieutenant, which that's basically an automatic promotion from second to first lieutenant.
Right.
And then on up just to major in that amount of time, to me is just not right.
No, I agree. And then because once they make general, then it's like we just said, it could in 3 or 4 years, you could go from 1 to 4-star, versus all these the experience personnel at those really key billets takes a long time, and rightfully so, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we agree that you need to be at those positions, a good amount of time to learn, so that when you go to the next level, you're ready for it. So,
yeah,
which really further solidifies our opinion that these general officers are a lot more politicians than our country understands and realizes, and they're no longer tacticians. Like, listen, General Patton, at least in my opinion, from what I understand, he was still a battlefield tactician, even though he was commanding an army.
Right.
He would be like, hey, commander, you need to get these tanks here and do this thing. And remember, you can do it this way or that way and do these things, but get it done. Versus the generals today, I definitely don't think are that level anymore. My opinion.
No, I mean, I get the same impression.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, that's why, when we talk about the military being, an apolitical organization, it's supposed to be. You're supposed to not care, what political party is in the White House, or, in the Senate Armed Services Committee or the House Armed Services Committee, because facts are facts. And you just tell the truth. And if you need more people, or you need more resources, or, hey, this ain't working out, you've got to be able to tell them that. And that's not what has been happening. And that's what we're talking about today. And that's what these lieutenant colonels have finally stood up for. They have finally said, we're done. we're not towing the line, and we're not telling you or the American people a lie anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, and they gave up millions of dollars in financial security, which they have earned, by the way, in my opinion,
Yeah.
to make this statement. And people might say, well, they shouldn't have come publicly with it. You're wrong. They should have come publicly with it. That's the only way we're going to know. And the people that say they shouldn't have come publicly with it are the same ones that will just keep sweeping stuff under the rug because we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to cross the line, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's just like a whistleblower in a private corporation, it's
right. Yes. And we've had very few in the active duty, right?
right.
Like so few, which is why it is a strange thing. I get it. I mean, it's, people are freaked out like, oh, these officers are saying things aren't true. Like, this is weird. Like, why would, they should wait till they get out? No. And that's the problem, because we've always just, quote, handled it internally, which is what has created this false sense of, mission accomplishment in all these certain areas. And then it turns into, listen, I'm not going to blame the president specifically. I know the buck stops with him, right? Isn't that what he said?
Yeah.
The buck always stops with me, but I get it. He gets advised. And I'll even be a little bit lenient to the SecDef and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And I say only a little bit because I still feel like they should resign or be fired, because they are fully responsible for the debacle, for to getting this far,
Mm-hmm.
and costing those 13 service members their lives, and then killing innocent civilians and kids with a drone strike to try to make us feel better by taking revenge on some potential ISIS-K people.
Yeah. When they came out and said that, I was like, no, there's no way. There's no way that they got that guy that soon and they're being nonchalant, like, oh, yeah, we took care of it. No
Right.
chance.
And they didn't identify who it was.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to tell us who it was. Listen, you and I both know, we know their hierarchical structure right now.
Mm-hmm.
We know their top guy, their second guy, third guy. We know all of them. So if you take one out, you say, I took this guy out.
Yep.
And
exactly.
they didn't.
Exactly.
And I was the same with you. I knew right away. I was like, that's not they. And it's so sad and unfortunate that they killed an innocent person and somebody that helped us.
Yeah.
And then 7 children.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still trying to. And then, of course, General Milley was saying, oh, it was a righteous strike based on information we had. Like, are you kidding me? Like, no, I don't believe you. And I don't believe any of you. So I only am going to buy that's what you were briefed a little bit. General Austin, well aware. He was a lieutenant colonel at 1.2. Mm-hmm. He was a major. So he gave some of those false briefings.
Yeah.
That are now coming back to haunt him. And that's why, hey, listen, I'm not afraid to say that I am calling for the resignation and or firing of the CIA director, Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of State. Those 4 to me are wholly responsible and should be held accountable for the debacle. And that's really the other thing that these 2 colonels are also saying. And I stand with them.
Yeah. And the magnitude of the operation and the significance of the operation, everyone up to and including the president was involved. So it's not like this was a surprise.
Right. This wasn't a surprise. You and I were and are in favor of a withdrawal.
Yes.
But it has to be executed correctly. And what really went wrong in this whole thing, what we discussed today, was, first of all, the ANA were not prepared to defend the country. So we should have understood that from the beginning. And we should have anticipated a Taliban takeover and thought ahead of time, what does a Taliban takeover mean for our embassy and for all non-government organizations?
Mm-hmm.
That's that 100,000, group of civilians that we were trying to get out, right? Or whatever the number was. So when you're planning this operation, if you say, well, if the Taliban are involved, are in control, then we would have to evacuate all of these people. Well, okay, so you have to assume that the Taliban are going to be in control then.
Mhm.
And then we have to get all of those people out first before we withdraw the military. And we did the exact opposite. We withdrew the military thinking that this was just going to be another country that we had an embassy in and that people were just living their life. And we had non-government organizations doing great things out in the cities of Kabul, Bagram, Jalalabad, Herat, Kandahar, helping the people with infrastructure, schools, so on and so forth, which was not the case. And then all of a sudden, in 11 days later, we're asking the Taliban, please don't kill us. Don't kill our people. Let us put them on planes and get them out of here.
Mhm.
So that's the debacle. That's what went wrong. And that's why you and I are talking about those 4 people need to be held accountable.
Mhm.
Because they planned this totally wrong and they executed it even worse than they planned.
Yeah.
And that's what's not being discussed enough in the media is that's what their thought process was. And it had to be, because when you look at, they were just withdrawing the military and they thought, cool, the people can just be there and work and do their thing. No, exactly. No, like, no way, man. And that was what you and I were talking about. Everybody and their mom knew it was going to be like that. Everybody.
Yeah.
My good mother, who is in heaven looking down on us right now, she knew that even the ANA couldn't defend and weren't going to defend themselves.
Exactly.
So, these lieutenant colonels, I stand with them. I believe in what they're doing. We need more of this, unfortunately. And when I say unfortunately, because it's going to cause a huge upheaval in our military that you mentioned, the national security crisis.
Mm-hmm.
But we need this national security crisis in order to try to fix the system, to make it better, to make it to where you can tell your boss the truth, because that can impact people's lives and real mission accomplishment. Yet I don't want us to be in too much of a national security crisis, because you mentioned this one particular country
mm-hmm.
who is our biggest threat right now. And who is that?
China.
I mean, so we need to be ready. We need to be more ready than we are right now. And it's scary to think if we just lost 50, 60, 70% of our field grades because they needed to take a stand. And China's watching this. They're watching our every move, and they're calculating. You and I have talked about this. We believe that they will probably move on the Philippines and Taiwan within the next 5 or 6 years. We both believe that it'll be before 2030. And what's our response going to be? And that's where, as a country, we need to understand that, first of all, we are obligated to defend Taiwan by congressional law. And we also have a mutual defense treaty with the Philippines. So the people need to know right now, need to think about right now, what is their thought process when China attacks one or both of those countries?
Japan as well.
Yeah, Japan too. I mean, we have 50,000 soldiers based within the Japanese islands, Okinawa. Okay, are we willing to go to full all-out conventional conflict to defend those people who we have said we will? I can't answer that for everybody. I mean, I think we need to honor our commitments, but we need to start doing the things now to prepare better for that. And that means we need an apolitical army or military. They need to be able to tell their bosses when things are not right and not get fired for it. They need to be able to brief our representatives in Congress. They need to be able to brief the secretaries at their level, the joint chiefs of staff, and they need to be able to brief the dadgum president and say, look, we're messed up. We can't do this, or we have failed in this mission, and tell the American people that. Like, listen, the American people are pretty forgiving as long as we're honest, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, most people are, if you admit mistakes and take responsibility, people are, all right, well, that was, you're more of a your character's shown more through admission of a mistake and being accountable for your actions than trying to get out of something.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And so all of those, you can go back 3 or 4 different administrations. We've been at this 20 years. I'm not pinpointing one, and I'm not pinpointing one political party. It's all of them.
Yep.
So, but we need an apolitical military. We need our commanders to be able to be honest and give real assessments. And when we say real assessments, meaning we can't accomplish the mission with this much or this little money or resources, then that's what we can't do. And I'm so tired of hearing do more with less.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I heard that for all 20 years I was in. Well, no, I take that back. I think in 2003, we started getting some money. In 2004, we were, we were pretty depleted, honestly.
Yeah.
Heading into Iraq, but we got healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Real quick.
We did. We got healthy real quick, but it definitely, dissipated over time. And then, sequestration hit in 2013 and hey, do more with less. No, I'm doing the same thing I'm doing now than I did back in 2003. Why do you want me to do it with less?
Yeah.
Like I can't do that. I can't do it effectively. I can't do it correctly. And so now when I go and tell you, hey, boss, I can't, oh, you can't do it. Well, guess what? I'll find somebody who can.
Mm-hmm.
So you're done. You're fired. And now you just meet all those consequences we talked about earlier.
Yeah. And I think that it goes back to maybe training, not necessarily training, but the culture of the new guy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to, when you're a new guy, you're timid, you're kind of worried about what your superiors think, and you don't want to tell them the wrong thing because you don't want to get in trouble. And that just continues because when you rank up, when you promote, then you're back to that, oh, don't want to make the bosses mad, that sort of thing. And that culture just is allowed, and when it shouldn't be facilitated.
Mm-hmm.
They should facilitate the truth and being able to come to your superior, whether it's enlisted or officer, and give them the facts and give them the truth without them, going off on you,
Right. I agree. I absolutely agree, man. I've seen it and you've seen it. You go in and tell your boss some bad news, and the answer is no. That is not how it's going to be. Now you better go out and fix that and make it happen, because I am not telling my boss that that's what it is. And you're like,
yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go out here and hang out for a while, and then we'll come back and be like, hey boss, it's good.
Yes, exactly. And I'm glad you said that, because that happens a lot, is when the guy in charge doesn't want to take it to his boss because he doesn't want to look bad.
Right.
It's like, what? You just
exactly.
That's
exactly what we're talking about. Absolutely. I mean, that's it right there. And then at certain levels, it just gets totally squashed and does not go any higher, which is why we're at where we're at right now. And that's the entire really point of these two colonels retiring or resigning, because they're tired of that. And they're saying, no more. I'm not going to sit here and stand and be dishonest and have a lack of integrity, anymore, which is awesome.
Especially when traits like integrity are emphasized and stressed, and they're used as a punchline.
Yeah. Right. Used as a punchline. That perfect. Right. That's it. That's it. How many times do we hear that? Integrity. If you don't have integrity, you have nothing. Integrity defines a person's character. Lack of integrity on the battlefield is going to get people killed. Okay. But you're not practicing it either.
Mm-hmm.
And we have seen it over and over and over again. And now finally, two people with enough weight to gain attention, lieutenant colonels, have said something and said, stop, I'm done.
Yeah.
Which thank goodness, because it's a lot to give up for those people to do that. And I get it. So I support them for sure. I think, how we fix this is you just said it, is really like, listen, because we can't lose a high percentage of those field grade commanders, but our generals have to be less political. We have to create a culture of being honest with our superiors and failure being okay to a point. I'm not saying
Right.
fail the mission.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But when you say that, okay, I can't accomplish it because of these things, like, you can't just say, well, I'll find somebody who can. Like, that's not the answer. And we've heard that too many times. Like, let's listen to our juniors.
Mm-hmm.
And then, let's not be afraid to take that same story to our seniors. And I'm not saying, go cry, oh, I can't do it, I need more money, I need more resources. But sometimes that's the truth.
Well,
and if that's
it's
the truth,
if you've got a guy, say you've got a captain, a major, they're trying to address the issue and they take it to, the major, lieutenant colonel, and they're coming to them, as long as they put their ego aside and say, okay, I don't know what to do, or I need some help figuring this out. You're going to your commander saying, hey, sir, I realize that you have more experience. Can I get your input on what you think might be a good idea on what to do in this situation? Because this is what we got. I mean,
yeah,
that's perfectly acceptable, right? I mean, and the
it should
commander, I
be.
would think, would be like, hey, all right, I'm glad you came to me because this is what I've experienced, and this is how we can fix it. So
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of times in the poor command climates, you get the responses, oh, what, Captain, do you want me to do your job? I've already been
yeah,
a company commander. I don't need to do your job again.
exactly.
Right. So we've got to get rid of that.
Yeah.
It's got to get rid of it. You've got to be approachable. This is a people business. We've talked about that a lot. We're all human beings, no matter what our job is, whether we're pulling the trigger, fixing the helicopter, pumping gas, getting somebody's leave form lost, whatever the case is. It's a people business. It really is. And we've got some really highly intelligent, willful people that are willing to do some god awful things in this world. And we just need to be better overall.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
yeah. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your opinions as always. You just have a real common sense, experienced approach, in my opinion, which I appreciated as a friend.
Yeah.
And fellow service member too. So, and I know the audience just really, really likes that about your approach and your opinion. So, as always, man, I appreciate you joining me every couple of weeks and, doing our shows, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. Definitely have fun with this stuff, and glad we can put it out there because I don't know many outlets that are putting it out there in this type of format in this type of way. So
I agree. Yeah, I don't think there are. I mean, honestly, mainstream media is not putting it out in this manner.
no,
And I think we've got some basic truths, some honest analysis and opinions and on what's happening and how we can fix it. So hopefully people will kind of take that to heart and, hey, put your pressure on your representatives, right?
yeah.
So, but yeah, so all right. Well, as we wrap this up, man, anything else you want to leave with the audience?
Yeah, just the fact that some people may think that they should have those two lieutenant colonels should have handled it differently. And look, they might have been able to do something a little bit different. But we discussed it here. If it goes up the chain of command at some level, they're going to bury it. It's not going to go any further than that. Yeah, maybe they could have. Lieutenant Colonel Scheller maybe could have done a little bit different with the social media aspect as far as his messaging and how he went about it, but it might not have had the effect that it did have. So Yeah, maybe there was a better way to do it, maybe not. Only time will tell. So we'll see from what happens here in the near future and beyond.
I agree. That's a good point. Yeah, he could have done things different, but maybe not. But I think I agree with you. I think if he had, then maybe we wouldn't be talking about it or have heard enough about it. So, yeah, it's good thoughts. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully, y'all learned a lot from the show. Grant and I love having these shows and bringing y'all that, really good, just unfiltered stories from real military service members, former Marine and retired soldier right here. So bringing it to you, honest, unfiltered opinions, from our experience though. So it's not just we're pulling straws, out of the thin air, but hopefully y'all enjoy, our commentary and, our thoughts through these things, and while we use our experience to really, try to explain to you in a little bit more detail of what's happening out there, so that you can, learn more than what the mainstream media is giving you out there. So as always, thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us. We love all the feedback, and don't stop with the feedback. Hey, go to the website, millsmilitarymoments.com. And on the blog page, each episode has, the episode where you can listen to it in the description, but you can leave comments. So please go and leave comments on there. We get them and we'll reply to them. And you can also leave comments on the YouTube channel, Miller's Military Moments. And then, we'll respond to those comments too. So, please continue to give us that feedback. And we look forward to, bringing you these shows and these topics, more and more. And, if y'all have any requests for topics of things, hey, hit us up and let us know. The other thing is, I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. We are working on bringing you all a live show, by the way. So Grant and I have talked about it. I'm working on the technical aspects of it. So who knows, maybe in the next month or so. I don't want to put us too much on the spot, but coming at you live, Grant and Jason, allowing you to, one, listen and see us, but communicate with us and ask us questions and actually be able to call in. How cool would that be? What do you think, Grant?
Very cool. I like it.
Yeah. So there you go. Throw it out there. I'm excited. I think we'll have that opportunity here soon to do that and to actually, communicate and, talk with our audience. So that'd be pretty cool. So, all right. Well, thanks again for hanging out and, tuning in to Miller's Military Moments. And as always, hey, be kind, be compassionate, be you. And until next time, peace.